Welcome everyone, and as we talk about India at 100, one of the most exciting transformations over the next several years will be the advent of 5G in India and this whole idea that India and the world is entering a metaverse, something much powerful, much more virtual than the physical world that we inhabit at this moment. And it is our absolute delight to welcome for this fireside conversation to the Business Today India at 100 Economy Summit, one of the legendary telecom operators in the country, one of the real visionaries of this generation of entrepreneurs who's built something of global quality and is still standing, fighting, and hoping to scale this in this 5G era. Can we have a warm round of applause as we welcome to this Business Today India at 100 event the founder of the Bharti Enterprises, Mr. Sunil Mittal. Thank you so much, sir. An absolute delight having you with us. Thank you.
Pleasure.
I want to start by asking you about the here and the now, which is about 5G. Everyone watching you on all of our platforms of Business Today and India Today would be keen on knowing if 5G hamara kab aa raha hai. When does my phone go from the current 4G service that it has to a 5G? How soon do we start? And what does this mean to everyone who's listening to you at this moment?
Well, I think 5G is now, as we all know, around the corner. We are in almost full readiness, I would say. And if you really look at the world, 5G has now started to take roots, real roots in most of the Western world, Southeast Asian countries. Singapore, in fact, was the last one to go and start this 5G. So I think some people think India is late. India is not late. In fact, it's the perfect timing. Some use cases are being developed. You can see devices coming through, prices of devices started to fall down, which perfectly suits a country like India. So I think we are ready. Thankfully, this time, the government put up a lot of spectrum because 5G requires very large chunks of spectrum to be effective. Otherwise, you don't really get the true joy of 5G. And not only the mid band, which is the C band, came through, the millimeter wave also was put out. So all in all, I think India is now ready from the spectrum point of view. Equipment is now pretty standard and available. We have been building for this day for the last 24 months. I had predicted that we will launch sometime in the second half of 22. Some of the competitors felt it could probably come in 20 end or 21, but I knew that this takes time to really develop into an ecosystem. So we are ready. Expect, as the minister said, launches beginning from October. It could even be from very early in October, but sometime in October, you will start to see on your phones, if they are enabled for 5G, a 5G icon coming on your phones. We'll start with big cities, the key towns, and then keep on, as we have seen in the earlier 4G or 3G avatar, keep on then proliferating right across the country and going into the deep hinterland. What will it do to us? I mean, today I travel around the globe. Am I, as a mobile customer, really looking for 5G? The answer is no. But there are very important use cases which are developing around the globe, which to my mind are game changers for our country. Robotic surgeries, deep healthcare management in rural areas, distributing our centers of excellence. Don't build a mega facility in Mysore by Infosys because scale is not important anymore. You can have 100 centers distributed in the country so that the employees can be working very close to where they are and get the same experience they would have got when they were in Mysore. Holograms, virtual rooms, virtual teaching, experiments, participative experiments, everything can be done through a distributed way because of 5G. Now, in simple terms, what is 5G? For everyone to understand, as we moved from 2G to 3G to 4G to 5G, in simple terms, it meant you could put in much more throughput capacity, so you could have very large amounts of files going through it, and importantly, data will be on steroids. So every time you go to the next technology, you are adding more steroids. So in 5G, you will have 10, 15, maybe even 20x speeds that you experience in 4G, and you can put a ton of capacity because the spectrum chunks are very large. But two important factors that come along with 5G is something that we as industry has been waiting for a long time. I can now slice and dice. If you are a particular customer of a particular need, I can give you a different speed, and everybody sitting in this room can get a different speed. Now, this was not a capability we ever had. So imagine a packet of data being delivered to Spotify to listen to music versus an autonomous bus driving school children. and on an intersection of a crossing, you have some emergency. How do you ensure that the packet that has to be delivered to the autonomous bus reaches there in milliseconds, as opposed to somebody taking and hogging away the bandwidth for a Spotify music? Now that can be done in 5G. The second part is latency. Latency means the speed at which you can respond to the needs. If a robotic surgery is being done and the patient, while being dissected or being worked upon, has a bleed. Now, if it is a remote surgery and you can't respond, the surgeon can't respond in good time, you're going to lose the patient. In this case, the latency is so low, less than 10 milliseconds, that you are virtually sitting next to him. So these are the two very important parts.
Do you have pricing plans in mind yet? I'm sure you do. Could you share them with us from a customer perspective? How much more do I need to pay for my 5G service versus my 4G service?
Well, for the industrial use cases, I think pricing will not be so relevant. It will be really solution-oriented, and you will price it for solutions. People will take on industrial level, enterprise level, and those programs are very different. If your question is, what will it mean for you as a customer or everybody else here? I think not a meaningful change. You will consume more data, therefore you'll end up paying a little bit more. And frankly, if India has to be a digital nation, you need healthy telecom companies. They are the backbone, the spine of the digital connectivity. And the current tariffs, and I've said this many times before, are still very, very low. For $2.50, when I tell around the globe that you can take 60 gigabytes of data a month, they're absolutely horrified and shocked that how can you even survive in that atmosphere? We do, as you know. But do we need to go to $40, $50 like the Western world? No. Maybe we need to get to $3, $4. And if 5G can do that, it will only make the industry more sustainable, be allowed to sort of put more money into innovation and investment, get more use cases faster. And I think there'll be a very small cost to pay. Distributed costs for over 1 billion people, paying $1, $1.50 at the upper end to make this industry
But
more
can I
stable.
play devil's advocate for a moment and ask you, while it's true that the average revenue per user in India is much lower than internationally, the fear is that now that there are only 3 operators left, could we be entering a situation in the 5G era where, because of cartelization or group action, customers have to pay much more than they've got used to?
Well, I think it's very hard to do that in a country like India, and you don't need to. I would say at nearly 200 rupees ARPU that we are reaching, we have come back into profitability, even though the return on capital deployed is very low, but you are in profitability. So if you get another dollar, I think that will do the job. That's all you need. And even in that, you will have a pack of 100 rupees at the low end. So a common man can just pay 100 rupees on 5G and still be connected and have a reasonable amount of data. But people like many of them sitting here can pay 500 rupees. I don't see any reason why you need to subsidize across the whole bandwidth of spectrum or spectrum of customers to make it at a point where it hurts. We know why we went down on the pricing. 6 years back, the average revenue was 240 rupees. We are below that 6 years later in real terms, not in nominal terms, which is odd. Costs have gone up, diesel has gone up, electricity has gone up, equipment has gone up, dollar is at 80 rupees now. So everything is against the industry's cost structure, yet we are not even at the same pricing as we were 6 years back.
Now, in the 5G auctions that were concluded recently, you spent about 43,084 crore rupees to pick up 19.8 gigahertz of spectrum. Jio spent 88,078 crore rupees to pick up 24.7 gigahertz of spectrum. Vodafone spent much lesser, 18,800 odd crore rupees to pick up 6.2 gigahertz per spectrum. What does that mean for customers sitting here? Does that mean because of additional spectrum, almost twice of what you have, could your competitor Jio have potentially better 5G services than yours?
No. First of all, we must understand why extra money was spent. They picked up 10 megahertz of 700 gigahertz. Now, that's an extra chunk of spectrum that they desperately needed. What was the choice? Use for your base spectrum band, which we call the base of a 5G network. You take an 1800 megahertz. You take a 900 or 800 or 700. So they had to buy something. Whereas we have been smartly assembling spectrum for a long period of time. We bought Tatas, we bought Telenor, we took spectrum from Videocon, we took spectrum from Aircel. So we have added a ton of spectrum as we went ahead, went into auctions, bought more spectrum. And I think we clearly knew where we were headed. So we have added a lot of mid-band spectrum, and we didn't need the 700. For Geo, they either had to buy 800, which was not available, there was not enough, or they had to buy 700. This was therefore a need for them to do it. It was not need for us to do it. Our 5G services will be best in class, not only just in India, but anywhere in the world.
You are one half of an epic gladiatorial battle. And while everyone sitting here will have his own take on this big Mittal versus Ambani fight, I really wonder how you see it sitting where you are. Because you're up against one of the most powerful businessmen in the country, one of the richest men in the country, one of the richest men in the world, and everyone around you, all the other competitors who you were initially competing with, have fallen one by one. And you, in many ways, are the last man standing.
Well, one, this country is very large, and I think it clearly deserves maybe even four, why three, to serve this country. In most of the countries of our size, if you look at China, there are four operators. US has got three now, the fourth one is coming through. So I would say you're not going to see a monopoly in the size of a country like India. Nobody's going to allow it. Forget the government or regulation. The country will not allow it. The people will not allow it. So therefore, you need two or three operators. That in Geo, we have a very dominant, strong, powerful competitor is a given. Keeps us on our toes. What do you need for running any good enterprise? You need capital. In our industry, ton of it. You just mentioned 43,000 crores just to buy the 5G spectrum. So we have spent over 4 lakh crores. I mean, people forget how much capital this guzzles, So you need capital. I don't think so we can match that. They all will always have access to more capital. They're a much larger industrial house. So therefore, you know your limitation compared to that. So you don't sort of fight on capital. That is theirs. The second is talent. I believe we have significantly superior talent to anybody in the world. The quality of management team, the commitment of people is very, very high quality. Today, is it any surprise that it's Airtel's person who runs a Vodafone network? It is Airtel's person who runs Jio's network. There are places in Myanmar, Indonesia, in the Western world, in Africa, which are Airtel people. We have very high quality people who are co-owners of this company. This is not my company. This is everyone's company, and they feel that way, see. So I think that is, to my mind, the most important part. A happy employee will churn out a happy customer. Last but not the least is a focus, a maniacal focus on your customers and his needs. These two things we can compete head-on and better. The first one, we manage. So as a combination of all these three, allow us to be the last man standing.
If we were to zoom out for a moment, yeah, it's a tough battle. No matter which way you see it, if you have to fight that battle, it's a tough battle to be fighting. It's good to see you have this very competitive fighter spirit. He's smiling, but kya bolu? He's like thinking like, now what might be a good response to that?
No, I mean, point is, which is a sector in any industry where you won't have competition? I mean, in every place, some people have smaller fights. I've been dealt a card which is very exciting, very interesting, and I've always said this before. I'll rather be in this difficult, situation than to run a steel industry and be very wealthy and be very bored, So in that sense, I'm enjoying this.
Now, even though the Adani Group is denied it, there is one toe that they have in the door with the limited presence that's been made. How do you view the second heavyweight entering this fray? And when you're saying you have to be on your feet like a boxer, where does that leave you when you potentially have one more boxer just outside the ring?
No, I think we are a product of competition. In fact, to my mind, we must always welcome more competition because I wouldn't exist if we were not allowed to be in the marketplace. Telecom is not meant for first-generation entrepreneurs. There are only two in the world. Craig Macau in the US, which was my inspiration many, many moons back, and our company. There is not a third example in the world because telecom is only for those who have deep pockets. And I never had deep pockets when we started. So from that point of view, I would say, if we, after 25 years of being in telecom, cannot go and win in the marketplace because some other dominant people will come and be in the market, we have no right to be in this business. That's what I tell my teams. We must be best in class. Rest will follow. In the last 6 years, the biggest crisis for this industry was prices dropped down, balance sheets got broken. Company after company after company folded down. Standing networks of $60, $70, $80 billion were just eliminated. They were just wasted, national waste, We stood firm because we were in the market, we were there doing well, we raised a lot of new capital, I personally diluted myself, and we repaired our balance sheet. So all that came together very well. Today, we are much stronger. The company's market cap is lifetime high, and my market share is lifetime high. The brand resiliency is very strong. So I believe that if there was to be more competition out there, we'll be fine. We'll have our own place.
So you'd welcome Adani in the 5G spectrum?
We welcome everybody. Although I would hope to serve Adani's needs for his enterprise needs. And I've been doing that. But if he decides to do it himself and not take any assistance from us, I'll be fine. But to my mind, we will be, my own view is, we'll be serving and cooperating for his ports and airports and other industrial needs, because I think we'll do a good job with that.
Because Gautam Bhai is hoping to lay his own pipes and use that for his own purpose and potentially going forward scale that up.
I'm saying anybody is welcome, but to my mind, if that move had to be made, he would have made it now. I mean, he has made it very clear, I've taken spectrum for my own needs. He spent 250 crores for a very small sliver of spectrum. And I think he wants to experiment how to take it forward in his own ports and airports, which is a welcome news. But even within that, if you see Germany, for example, take BMW, they have tied up with Vodafone, despite having some spectrum. And Vodafone is doing all their tech stack and services. I hope I'll be able to do that for him.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Lots of subtext in that message. Let's zoom out for a moment. The whole idea of this conference is India at 100. In the initial part, because of the immediacy of 5G, we got caught up in what's happening now. But what's your view on how the telecom sector and the IT sector is going to evolve over the next 2.5 decades? What are the other meta trends that you are preparing for, right?
Well, I think we are into a very, very exciting phase. And I feel that somehow everything has aligned in a very good way for India. Building hard physical infrastructure would still take us 20, 30 years to be where China is. While we are doing road development at breakneck speed, we are doing new airports, a lot of new stuff is coming through. But that takes time. It's really not an easy task to put infrastructure for a nation as big and diverse as India. There are issues on forests being not allowed to be exploited for infrastructure, bridges, flyovers. So there's a lot of work to be done. There will keep on happening. But the digital infrastructure is here and now. And I think that is where India's vision of being digital holds so much promise. We are about $3.1 trillion economy today. We are wanting to get to $5 trillion economy by 2027, of which $1 trillion is being actually projected for digital, which means the country, the leadership, the government recognizes that a digital platform for India will transform this nation. And if you really see the Jam Trinity, the Jan Dhan, the Aadhaar, the mobile in everybody's hand, has transformed. Just imagine a life without connectivity today, without a mobile phone. Look what happened in pandemic. Not a single hour was lost in productivity. Traffic shifted from cities to rural India. Traffic shifted from offices to home. Did you ever miss a single beat? Yes, everything was seamless. And for that, not just Airtel, every other telecom operator should be given credit. Everybody worked day and night. People were out in the street moving the traffic, regardless of the fear or dangers of COVID onto them and their families. So this industry really needs to be nurtured. I keep on repeating myself. This needs to have lower taxes. This needs to be given a ton of spectrum, a lot of support. And by the way, in the last couple of years, we are now seeing the government fully backing this in terms of ease of doing business.
So you said that. You put out a statement once you got the auction saying E-band allocation was given along with spectrum as promised, no fuss, no follow-up, no running around the corridors of powers, and no tall claims. This is the ease of doing business at work in its full glory. Is that really how you generally feel, or you feel just about this specific instance, or do you think that doing business in India from your perspective is actually getting easier?
Well, I think we saw another intervention which came through yesterday in the form of right-of-way. This is a demand of the industry for the last 20 years. And suddenly, everything has been rolled out. You want to put your 5G antennas on bus shelter, it's done. You want to go over private colonies. We have had run-ins with the private colonizers. You can go over, and put fiber in those colonies now. I think all that is happening in the at least in my area of work, that is telecommunications, suggests that the government is finally saying, let's back it up fully.
You know, it's interesting that the telecom and IT minister just walked in as you said it, and he's smiling from year to year as he would quite naturally, saying, "Okay, this is exactly what we want to
So
hear."
when I was saying things have aligned, I meant that as well.
You said, "Okay, this is good timing." The minister couldn't have had better timing in terms of coming in. No, so let's just prior to you coming in, we had this conversation on the multiverse, and a lot of talk around whether this is truly the next vista and the next frontier, or is it just something that tech companies are pushing because they need to plan their future and it's more hype than actual reality? How do you see it?
No. It always starts with hype. I mean, let me take you back. I mean, I'm much older than you are, but let's take you back. Reading those sci-fi comics, we could have ever imagined we'll have flying cars, we will have a connected, universe, we'll colonize Mars. Today, it's no more just stories or folklore. We are going to do that. So I would say whatever is being discussed today, connected societies, autonomous cars, robotic surgeries, drones being managed remotely and doing wonderful things, it's going to happen. Some experiments one can already see the early days. You are seeing tourism in space. You are seeing rockets going every month now, launching satellites. The universe is going to be connected. So whether it's space, whether it's subsea cables, whether it's on the ground terrestrial networks, you're going to have a connected society. That provides a platform for the minds of human beings to develop things that we can't even imagine today. So to my mind, you will have some extraordinary developments happening in the universe, which will take us to what we read in our comics and stories in the past, you see. We will colonize space. We will have people living in space stations. We will have data centers deep in the ocean because they need cool air. And we will have all the metaverse of having these kind of conferences where people are not physically present. I can envision that. I can envision hospitals doing surgeries in villages through very smart remote outposts where there's probably just a local caretaker, but a surgeon sitting in Delhi or Bombay doing those critical surgeries. It is going to happen.
But for the Business Today, India at 100 event and everything else that we do at the India Today group, we'd much rather have you, the minister, and all our guests with us in person, sitting next to us, rather than in the metaverse. That won't be quite as much fun. I want to spend some time talking about the challenges as well. And one of the challenges at this moment is the semiconductor chip crisis. With growing tensions between China and Taiwan, and the potential that at some point in time the People's Liberation Army could want to take more aggressive positions on Taiwan, how do you see that impact India and everything that you're trying to do in the telecom sector? And how should India be working to try and circumvent some of that?
Well, I'm very glad you asked this. The fact is, being a long traveler, I started manufacturing telephones in 1982. Push button phones, that's where I started my life in telecommunications. And I've seen this journey for a long period of time. In the early 90s, we saw most of the large telecom gear manufacturing coming here. Lucent put up a factory, Ericsson came here, Nokia came here, Alcatel came here, Nortel came here, Fujitsu came here. And they set up very fancy factories which were ahead of its time. Each one of them, in a matter of 5 years, left the country. Our loss was China's gain at that time. We had actually taken a lead, or at least were at par with China at that time. Slowly and surely, we saw all this manufacturing moving away. We had one semiconductor factory in Mohali, SEL, which was the first factory that we had in this country. That unfortunately went down in flames, and no government after that put it back to revival or into a program. If you would have asked me this question even 3 or 4 years back, during the time of this government, will India regain its manufacturing place in the universe? I would have said no chance. In fact, during my lifetime, I never thought India could become a manufacturing hub for electronics. And we, by the way, import over $600 billion of electronics of various forms. But I was comforted with the fact that a large part of value chain is in the soft side, the software side, where India participates. So we have lost the battle for hardware, but at least we are there in software. Today, I can tell you, things have changed. And one of the driving factors is trusted sources. Suddenly, the issue of China has become a massive, massive, I would say, not just a talking point, but a deep stress around the globe, And the cracks that have appeared on this global supply chain is giving India a very good opportunity. Now combine that with PLI, DLI, what has been ushered by the government, and you're seeing manufacturing companies lining up to pick up those subsidies to set up manufacturing plants here. Again, there's been an alignment of stars here. They need to be away from China, they need to be in India, and the government is welcoming them. Intel came, this was, I think, Craig Barrett's time. During Dr. Manmohan Singh's time, I had long conversations. They wanted to set up a very major chip manufacturing plant here. They wanted some land, they wanted some subsidies. We could not give them. It was a small little, gesture from India. That factory shifted from here and went to, I think, Cambodia. We lost that forever, you see. Today, the government of India is inviting the chip manufacturers to come and manufacture here. Silicon is becoming expensive because of the supply chain stresses, but it will calm down. We're already seeing the first signs of the situation getting slightly better. As things move away from China, Taiwan starts to manufacture in India, sends technology here. American companies start to come into India to make fundamental electronic manufacturing. I hope during my lifetime, we will now have a chance to be
The counter
counted.
to that is, and I made the same argument that you're making to some experts on international trade at the World Economic Forum at Davos recently. And they said, given the scale and scope of manufacturing in China, given its entrenched position in global value chains, a lot of this could ultimately be hype and not necessarily lead to, while there's some talk and there'll be some movement on account of PLI and various other schemes, it won't fundamentally change the nature of international manufacturing, and China will still remain by far the largest player, with India continuing to being on the margins. How do you respond to this?
No, I think there is a fundamental shift now. You can see it. I mean, I talked to Samsung, Nokia, Ericsson. They already have now plants here, as you know, Foxconn, and you can see now commitments coming in a very substantial way, and they are real commitments, and they know that talent is sitting here, software is sitting here, manufacturing facilities which are missing are now coming through. Why would India not be the place? Because if China is not going to be able to supply to the Western world, so a trusted source has become now a fundamental need for all electronics because of cybersecurity and other issues. So I would say India now truly has a chance. How much can we grab it? I think depends on government. My own view is this government is committed. They're putting tens of thousands of crores. I've never seen anything like this before. And welcoming every foreign company to come and set up bases here. People like Tata's, I'm having continuous conversations with Chandra. They really want to manufacture products here in India. They've acquired Tejas, as you know, so they can get some leg up. So I would say you will now see in 10 years' time, India becoming a truly manufacturing hub. I can really envision it, and I'm confident it will happen.
Two of my batchmates at the Harvard Business School were senior managers at MTN, and they'd worked with Airtel earlier. And just generally sitting as you would in college, you talk to them about the difference of working at Bharti and MTN. And since then, this question has been in my head. When you look back at your journey in Africa, what do you think, if you were to do it again, would you do differently? Would you do it at all? And what are the lessons that you learned as a first generation Indian entrepreneur with global ambitions, which you'd like to leave for anybody else who might have a similar aspiration?
We were getting very restless. We were having no debt on our balance sheet. All our people wanted to expand, go out. And I think it was a good time to showcase what India can do as affordable services and yet still turn around a decent margin. Africa, pricing was very high, cost structures were very high. And that's why we didn't go to the US or Europe. We chose Africa because we felt we can make a difference. I think what we missed out was that there is no real middle class there. You either have people at the bottom who really need money for many things, just not telecommunications, or there was a select few people who are well off. We went down and rolled and doubled the network in the first year. So we put billions of dollars just to follow what we did in India. In India, if you put a tower, traffic will come. If it didn't come today, it will come tomorrow. In Africa, we put up towers, nobody came. We lowered the prices by more than 50% when we went there. People saved that money, bought oil to cook their food or medicines. They didn't buy more talk time or more data at that time. So I think we made some fundamental mistakes in the beginning. Perhaps some overconfidence is to be blamed as well. And more importantly, our due diligence was weak because what we found out after buying into the company was not delightful. It was a very poorly managed affairs there. Took us 6, 7 years of shock, pulled our socks, then went after it to fix it. Today, Africa is nearly $5.5 billion in sales, $2.5–3 billion in EBITDA, dividend-paying company, iconic success, one of the rare brands from India, which you can see in 14 countries in Africa. You can see it in Sri Lanka, you can see it in Bangladesh, you can see it in Mauritius, and you can see it in 2 European tiny islands, Jersey and Guernsey. So 18, 19 countries today, Airtel has established itself. And it's a rare that you see an Indian brand, Indian flag flying when you walk into those countries. I get calls from people deep into the bush in Africa, going for the safari, saying, we're getting great signal, great service, thank you. So it's good to see that.
Okay, and as I come to the last part of this conversation, I want to talk about OneWeb, this low Earth orbit satellite constellation. Do you see this as being an important part of the services going forward with real use cases across, or do you see this as being a smaller play in the larger telecom scheme of things?
Yeah, if you really look at the size and scale of what satellite services will have as a pie in the overall connectivity world, it will be much smaller. But it's a very critical piece, missing piece. And it's been the holy grail for our industry. We have tried and tried for the last 25 years. We have not been able to reach that last billion. And we just can't do it with fiber. We can't do it with terrestrial networks. The only way to do that is with satellite. Now, when you have geostationary satellites, which are at 36,000 kilometers, the signal is weak, the throughput is slow. You can't do today's needs. Forget metaverse, but even basic needs of a video, streaming or a Zoom call is almost impossible. The latency is too long. 560 milliseconds of latency doesn't allow you to do anything. So you need a LEO constellation, and that's what we at OneWeb are doing, along with Starlink, and Amazon is hoping to do. So they will have a space in the overall scheme of things for connectivity. Our deep rural areas, deserts in Rajasthan, Himalayas, will all need this. And current, beyond experiments now, commercial services in Alaska, Canada, Greenland are giving us tremendous amount of confidence that we have got something which works and works very well.
So before we invite the Union Telecom and IT Minister to come on the stage and talk about his vision, I want you to ask one question, and it has to be a tough question, which you'd want the minister to answer. It can't be a lollipop kind of question. It has to be like a tough question, which kind of puts him on the spot, and then we'll get him to answer, and then we'll take it from there. So what is the question that you'd like to ask the minister, and you have to promise that it's a tough one?
Well, I think one of the areas where I have had discussions with Ashwani ji is around the long-term viability and sustainability of this sector. I think we have come out of our most difficult period. We have started to move forward. But this industry, given the capital intensity it has, still requires tremendous amount of support, even beyond what is being now given on an increased basis. Why are we being taxed almost at par with tobacco? This contradiction needs to be sorted. So if that is a tough question, I think that's...
Okay, but we leave it there. He asked a question which he wanted asked most importantly, and we'll get the minister to answer that. But this was a fabulous conversation. You always speak so frankly, and you speak from the heart. And it means a lot to us that you took out the time and made the effort of joining us here at the Business Today India at 100 Conference. Thank you so much. Can we have a warm round of applause for Sunil Bharti Mittal?
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.